All right, well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Puget Podcast, or so we're calling it. We're going to be doing a three-part series on the new CPU launches by Intel and AMD, and with me today I have Josh Raye, who is the product manager here at Puget Systems. And before we dive too much into the actual CPU launches and the technical side of things, why don't you take a second to actually just kind of explain what your role here looks like at Puget?
Sure. So I'm the product manager here, and that looks like is I handle our component level validation, and also I shop around for like what components might be good candidates for our product line, and that requires like getting feedback from all over the company, and then translating that into what might be a good product in our systems. I also work closely with our hardware vendors, and that's to gather roadmaps or technical documents, or if we run into an issue that, requires their intervention to solve.
Sure.
I'll be the point man on those support tickets.
And how often do you see scenarios like that?
More than I would like.
Well, not to sell anyone out specifically, but I think that kind of speaks to your role and kind of Puget Systems' role in the industry, to the fact that you are having those interactions with the engineering side and with people at those at the manufacturers.
Sure.
That are actually causing change in the industry.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially like later on in the life cycle of a product when we provide feedback. Some vendors are like more receptive to that feedback, and we could see that evolve or get incorporated into future products. But where like the sheer quantity of support issues come, I think it's just like natural growing pains because we get a lot of early products, and these are things that are like still being ironed out. It's just is what it is. It's early stuff. So yeah.
So what does this is probably hard to package up in kind of one complete thought, but what does your role kind of look like? What do you when you're qualifying a part, like what are the things you're looking for here?
Oh man. Well, I guess it comes down to just because I'm handling the entire or designing, I guess, the process that we put all these things through, and there's no way to really like. I guess
that is probably a difficult question because it depends on the component itself. Like you're going to look for different things for a motherboard than you would a CPU.
Well, definitely. I mean the actual like validation side. There's no way there's like just this huge rabbit hole of like testing with all sorts of different hardware combinations.
Sure.
So what we do is we pick the combinations that we think would or probable to cause issues, and we test in that way. And then what we're trying to gather in the end is, do we feel comfortable bringing this product to scale?
Sure.
Like, are we able to launch this and like not have tons of problems on the production floor or on the support side?
Yeah.
So.
And so you do a decent amount of work with our labs team, right?
Yeah.
What does that relationship kind of look like?
Well, so where I do the component level validation, they're more so designing the systems as a whole, tailored towards our customers' use cases. Where they handle like a lot of the performance testing, they define a lot of the performance points that we need to meet, and then also I work with them to figure out what features we're looking for, we work pretty closely together with that.
Okay, so for those that are unaware, recently, Intel and AMD both released new CPUs. So what does that landscape now look like between those two people?
Yeah. So Intel just released the Core X 10000 series, which is an iteration to a line that they've had going for quite a while now. So what this brings is more expandability with more PCIe lanes, slight frequency bumps. You get like some hardware mitigations to the vulnerabilities that you heard about earlier in the year. You also get...
everyone was all antsy about those.
Yeah, definitely. And then you also get something called DL Boost, which it leverages the AVX instruction set with low precision and that accelerates like machine learning type learning type loads. Also with Intel, you get the Xeon W22 series, which is the Xeon counterpart to the Core X series. You get basically take the Core X series, remove overclocking, sprinkle in some enterprise features like registered ECC support, and then that's that product.
Okay. And so what of these CPUs are now being added to our product line?
Oh, well, I guess we skipped over AMD, but
Sure. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah. So another thing with Intel is Cascade Lake 64L. This is what they're calling the Xeon W32 series. This is a single socket, like up to 28 core product, and that has 64 PCIe lanes routed to the CPU, which is pretty exciting. This is actually what Apple is using in the Mac Pro,
right.
And something that we're going to be interested in too. On the AMD side, you have a lot of exciting product here. So first you have the 3950X, which is now the top-end SKU on their client side. This brings 16 cores to that space, and it kind of even blurs the line a little bit between like what is a client system, what is a high-end what they call a high-end desktop system. And then you also have Threadripper 3, which is they've made some pretty big improvements here over last gen. So like the instructions per clock have actually like become near to or at the same performance as Intel, and you get up to 32 cores. So it's like a very attractive processor, especially at the price point.
Wow. So of these CPUs, which ones are being brought into our product line, but more importantly, why are they being brought into our product line?
Yeah. Well, we bring things into our product line because we think, or we know that they're going to be useful to our customers. Labs upstairs has been doing all kinds of work, comparative testing. Their to-do list is a mile long in the last few weeks, just from like all of this comparative testing that they've had to do with the processors that have come out recently. And what they found is there's a place for all of these in our product line. Like they all have their uses for specific customers.
And what does that do for you as being the person that's kind of managing that product line, and now as from a business standpoint, like it would be nice if we could trim that product line down, right?
Yes.
But obviously that isn't possible. So like where do you find that balance?
Well, it's kind of like a like competition.
I realize that's a little bit of a loaded question.
It's funny because like yes, it does make my job easier when there's fewer products that are like good for our customers, but it's also great that there's competition. It just makes for a more healthy ecosystem. You see like more performance generation over generation because you have competing companies. I think I'm getting a little lost on the actual question, but it just means where we had the luxury of focusing on Intel before, now there's just twice as much product to focus on.
Well, I think I get what you're getting at. Like, as much as we would love to find that perfect balance, what's more important is actually like finding what is best for the actual end user, for the actual customer itself. So,
thank you. You said that much better than I did. Yeah.
So I know you touched on some of those kind of the tech specs, I guess, so the advantages of each of the CPUs. But if you were to kind of compare the two CPU lines kind of in a vacuum, not thinking about the actual use case and all that, like what are the technical advantages of each of the CPU lines?
Okay. Well, with the Core X10000 series, it's funny now that they've cut the price on these processors, it's become like a great value proposition. So you're
saying Intel is now the value option.
Yeah,
okay.
It's kind of weird how things have flipped around recently, but you get like lots of cores, good frequency, like pretty good price now. And then like Xeon W22 series, you get like all of that, but with the added reliability of ECC registered memory and then other enterprise features. And then with the 3950X, the AMD 3950X, you get just an insane core count for a client system. And then for the Threadripper 3, you just get tons of really powerful cores. And then Cascade Lake using code names here. Xeon W3200, you get lots of cores, up to 28, and you also get 64 PCIe lanes, so this makes it great for like GPU dense workstations,
right?
Things like that.
Okay, so you brought up core count. multiple times there, and I know that you don't tend to work. I know our labs team, the ones that kind of focus on how the hardware interacts with software and all that. But I am kind of curious, just from your perspective, what the intention is of Intel and AMD having this kind of arms race for having as many cores as they can, when for a vast majority of use cases that we can tell, at least that we target, tend to be they use up to in that 10 to 20 core range.
Yeah. I think that this is starting out as just, it's stiff competition between these two companies right now. And I think that eventually it's going to be the catalyst for more software platforms utilizing all these cores. So, they're kind of creating the egg that's going to make the chicken with all this competition. So
sure, and we've seen that in the past with other products where they first create that hardware and then get it into the software developers' hands. Mm-hmm. That way they can then develop the software for that product. So that does make sense.
Definitely.
So at this point, how far are you within your qualification process of these CPUs? The only reason I ask is because I'm kind of curious if after everything you've kind of gone through over the past probably months, actually, mm-hmm. of evaluating these different CPU lines, what does this kind of tell you about the future of these two companies and the directions that they're trending?
Oh, man. If you put it, plotted the lines on a graph, AMD, how fast they're improving their performance is just, such a steep curve. It's really impressive what they're doing, and I think that I'm not seeing evidence of them slowing down at all, so I think that the future for them is very bright. With Intel, they've had the luxury of having huge market share over the generations, so that means lots of development has been geared more towards their stuff, and in that time, they've been, continuously funding their R&D department just like AMD. So I do wonder if they have some things holstered that they might be able to bring now that competition is a little stiffer.
Either way, it's going to be very exciting to see how things are going to pan out over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So, unless you have any other major takeaways from everything that you've done over the past few months?
I can't say that I do, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for jumping on. The next episode is actually going to be focused primarily on post-production and how these CPUs are going to help out people in that industry right now. So
cool.
Thanks.